So we're going to go ahead now and see how to make a box plot and also compute the quartiles that we need for the 5-number summary. So for the 5-number summary, we're going to want to compute the minimum, the first quartile, the second quartile or the median, the third quartile, and the max. Or of course you can order them the other way, it doesn't really matter. And just put a little table around here. And so I could go ahead and order this and find the minimum, or I could also compute it. So the minimum is easy to do. Just Control-Shift-Down using the min command. So all I'm doing is I'm just typing the command min for minimum, and I'm entering all the values using the Control-Shift-Down rather than selecting the first one and dragging down, and you get the minimum. And that makes sense. We know that the minimum was 0. For the first quartile, we start to type equal sign because we want to return a value, and we start to type the command for quartile. You notice that Excel here returns 3 different possibilities. Usually when you see options down at the bottom and they have a yellow exclamation mark, those are usually reserved for older versions of Excel. Here we're going to use quartile EXC. And again, I have to specify the range. So I'm going to click on the first value, Control-Shift-Down, choose them all. And notice I don't have to really go back up to the beginning because the command is in the command bar there. And so Excel says, okay, you want to compute a quartile, you want to use these data values. What quartile do you want? I could type in 1 or simply click on this option, double click, and it computes the first quartile. Now, rather than retype that command for the second quartile, I'm just going to copy the quartile command for the first quartile, paste it, hit enter, go down to the next line, paste it, and just change the 1 to a 2. And for the third quartile, I can do exactly the same thing, but again, change this to a 3. And for the maximum, again, we could sort the data set, but it becomes a little cumbersome if you have a large data set. So it's kind of nice to get used to using the max command for the maximum value. Again, Control-Shift-Down, and I hit enter. And there's my 5-number summary right there. Okay. And there we are. Now I want to go ahead and create a box plot. So all I'm going to do to create a box plot, I'm simply going to click on the letter of the column that has the quantitative variable values I want to make a plot of. I go here to insert, and I go to recommended charts. It doesn't generally show up the box plot in the recommended charts, so we have to go to all charts. And notice that there is no box plot. So there's this thing called box and whiskers. I'm going to choose that, click OK, and there's my box plot. And it's called box and whiskers because you can see that these lines out here appear to be whiskers, right? I can change a few things. For one thing, I want to put in a title. So I may put and the data goes from 2016 to, 1986 to 2016. Okay, and you can play around a little bit with this. You notice that you can change the color. I won't bother to go through a lot of this stuff, but you could change the color. Blue's a little on the dark side. And you can also change the thickness. So the thickness really isn't that thick. Just kind of play around a little bit more. That makes it a little more visible. There is no x-axis. Okay, so I'm going to take that out. We don't need it. And there we go. Okay, so this is a nice box plot. We can go ahead and cut and copy or paste. And that's all there is to making box plots. One thing we don't have on this box plot that we'll see in another class example is we don't have outliers. In other words, if we truly had values that were far away from the rest of the data set, they would show up as little dots here. And we're going to actually do an example in class where we see outliers in the data set. But we don't have any here, even though I believe the largest value is 23, and that's a pretty large value. Nevertheless, it's still considered part of the rest of this cluster of data.